Hey everyone, I'm going about 10 minutes early, but whatever. It's so early in the morning. We got zero viewers. I wanted to go over what's going on with this whole Zionism thing that's popped up, and I'm going to tie a couple of things together. But let's go over some of these posts that people have made in the last few weeks. Like this is February 28th, so we're talking 2-3 weeks ago. JP Berg, no matter who the Americans vote for, they end up with John McCain. JP and I were actually doing a podcast together. We do one every week, but we're doing one tonight to talk about this specifically. And it's not that we hate Trump or we've completely lost faith in Trump. It's just uh, how many cycles has this happened? I don't support Obama. I think the guy was a commie to begin with, but a lot of people saw Obama as Trump. So they got behind Obama thinking that he would magically fix all the mistakes with a great financial crash. And he bailed out the banks instead. So a lot of them, they felt stabbed in the back. It took them a while to come around, but they felt stabbed in the back. We saw what happened with Ron Paul. I think Ron Paul might have even been before Obama, but he drew huge numbers out to his rallies, but he was suppressed and he was pushed aside, and they didn't go with him. You had the Tea Party movement after the great financial crash, and then Obama went after them. Um, who do we have after Tea Party? I guess Trump came in, and I really liked his first term. I didn't look at it in detail, but I really like what he was doing. But the second term is just they've done some good things, but I'd say it's about one quarter good and three quarters just disaster. I pray this happens as quickly as possible with the least amount of casualties. This is about Iran, so this is when the Iran war started. February 28th, was that the day it started? I guess it would have been the night of the 27th, which was the Friday. No, has not happened as quickly as possible. Let's go over Trump's speech while viewers are trickling in just to see how this has aged.
Short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian
So that hasn't aged well because the Iranians didn't really pose a threat to his military bases until he attacked them. And then I would say Iran has obliterated all of the military bases in the region. And he's mentioned the allies in the region. Well, you're the superpower. They're not your allies. They're your protectorate. You're supposed to protect them, and you've done the opposite of that. And Iran has shown that you can't protect them. This is a huge miscalculation. If it wasn't intentional, it's a miscalculation, and it's eroded America's position as the hegemon in the world, which is what the neocons wanted. So the neocons, I mean, if Trump is playing, 65D chess or wherever the hell we're at now, he's done a good job of destroying the neocons.
regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries. Among the regime's very first acts was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, holding dozens of American hostages for 444 days. In 1983, Iran's proxies carried out the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut that killed 241 American military personnel. In 2000, they knew and were probably involved with the attack on the USS Cole. Many died. Iranian forces killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. The regime's proxies have continued to launch countless attacks against American forces stationed in the Middle East in recent years, as well as U.S. naval and commercial vessels and international shipping lanes. It's been mass terror, and we're not going to put up with it any longer. From Lebanon to Yemen and Syria to Iraq, the regime has armed, trained, and funded terrorist militias that have soaked the earth with blood and guts. And it was Iran's proxy, Hamas, that launched the monstrous October 7th attacks on Israel, slaughtering more than 1,000 innocent people, including 46 Americans, while taking 12 of our citizens hostage. It was brutal, something like the world has never seen before. Iran is the world's #1 state sponsor of terror and just recently killed tens of thousands of its own citizens on the street as they protested. It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again. They can never have a nuclear weapon.
The narratives keep changing. First, it was they were trying to go for nuclear weapons with the original surprise attack, the 12-Day War. And now he's saying that they're a terrorist regime. They're changing the messaging because they want regime change this time. Well, they wanted it. That's why he's talking like this. If the operation had gone well, like in Venezuela, it wouldn't be a problem. But because it hasn't gone well, I think they're scrambling now to, and the narratives just keep changing. With respect to calling Iran the biggest sponsor of terrorism, I think Alexander Mercouris addressed this really well. He's like, every country in that region is involved in terrorism to a certain extent. And he said Iran is not in any way the biggest sponsor. I'm guessing Saudi Arabia is because they have to bribe the Muslim Brotherhood to, let them remain in power. And the Muslim Brotherhood goes in and does all sorts of things. This effing guy is all I can say. Yeah, like I still think he can turn this around, but he's, Miriam Adelson is, she said she has breast cancer. Who knows why? But or is that Susie Wells? She's stepping aside. That's a good sign. They really got to purge all of these neocons. Get Elon Musk back. That's slavery for the children, says Hongoloid. Right, it is. That's a it's part of this. It's also its own separate issue. Maybe I'll come back to that later on, but that's a huge problem. I have an ethical issue with what do you call it, sovereign debt. Like I can't pass my debt on to other people. It can be attached to my estate, and then if you get my estate, the debt comes out of that estate. But to enslave children with debt, which is what the boomers have been doing since the 60s, where they racked up the tab, they got the best healthcare, best education, everything, deficit spending, and now the youth are paying for it. That's not only should be illegal or unconstitutional, that should be ungodly and unethical. There's got to be something in Christian in the Bible about that.
That is why in Operation Midnight Hammer last June, we obliterated the regime's nuclear program at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. After that attack, we warned them never to resume their malicious pursuit of nuclear weapons.
Catching your random live streams is like opening a box of chocolates. What was the Forrest Gump? You never know what you're gonna get. Yeah, I hope you get a good one.
And we sought repeatedly to make a deal. We tried. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. Again, they wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't know what was happening. They just wanted to practice evil. But Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range.
So, just so people, I've said this like 100 times, but me and my family, we're part of the liberal Iranians. So I'm like far right, extremist in Canada. But if I went to Iran, I would be a leftist. Like I'm a lunatic liberal in Iran. And my family's always been critical. Like what Trump is saying, my family said 10 times worse. Like Iran, they cannot have a nuclear weapon. They said this regime can't possibly have nukes. They're crazy. They'll fire it on other people. And they also say Iran is not ready for a democracy. We need either a monarchy or a dictatorship. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it and say that this is a good regime. They have killed tens of thousands of people. I'm getting reports from Iran that's even worse. Like, I guess if they protest against the government, they get murdered, and then the parents have to go reclaim the body. But they cite something in the Quran that says that if you work against God, you need to pay a penalty. So they demand that the parents pay thousands of dollars to get their children's remains, and sometimes they can't pay. Mind you, this is coming from the other liberal Iranians in Iran, so maybe it's just a made up story.
Missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland. Just imagine how emboldened this regime would be if they ever had and actually were armed with nuclear weapons as a means to deliver their message. For these reasons, the United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests.
So Iran doesn't really, it's just not able to threaten America. Like, it doesn't have a navy, doesn't really have an air force. The weapons that it does have, they're designed for striking the enemies just out of retribution. Where Iran does threaten their national security is that Iran can support China through trade. This is about trade. It is about central banking, but I think it's beyond that. It's about the trade routes. Like, America is using its navy to try to push China around in the seas, the waterways, the seaways. So China's trying to go through land, and that's what the Belt and Road Initiative is. And America is trying to cut it out. That's the important thing about Iran. Like, it's a central hub in Asia, and you got Russian oil and gas going north south, and you got China going east west, which is why they want to take it out. And look, if you want to take a like realpolitik view, the neocons kind of have a point. If America wants to remain the hegemon because it's better to have America than China, okay, fine. Well, two things. One, you've just bungled the entire operation. You've humiliated this concept of American invincibility, like military might. And two, people are starving in your own country. People are losing agency. Like, everything is being consolidated in this ruling elite billionaire class. So you can't turn to people and say we're better than China. It's come to the point where the only argument that America has to convince their population to support this is to say, well, at least we don't have labor camps, sweatshops, gulags. Like, this is they're scraping the bottom of the barrel. Gary, I'll never be as good as I once was, but I'm as good as I'm going to get. Nonsense. You're only going to get better, buddy. Prairie, that I didn't know.
We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated. We're going to annihilate their navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the.
That naval thing is also a bit of a problem. Okay, well, first of all, Modi goes to Israel because America and Israel are trying to pull India away from the BRICS. A few days later, India invites Iran's navy to participate in just like a non-violent sort of naval event where it's like a parade. I don't know what you call it in the Navy. It's for show. On the way back, America attacks that Iranian naval vessel that it didn't even have any armaments on it. And I don't know how, but all the people on board died. If they managed to survive and they let them drown in the open sea, that's just horrific. But then India, they didn't say anything. Like, this is starting to look really bad on India, and India is a part of BRICS. So Iran, they've quasi quote closed the Strait of Hormuz, but they said we will allow Indian ships in, but they're no longer selling that oil to India at a discount. So this is really bad for India, and the longer Modi doesn't really put out a statement that I'm aware of, the worse it gets for him. MAGA is finished. Yeah, I kind of agree, but MAGA was, to me, it was the more extreme wing, like the 5D chess, Trump can do no wrong. but it's the America First wing, which is the populist wing, like Robert Barnes, Colonel McGregor, people like myself. Mostly these are anti-war people. These are, pro-prosperity, individual liberties, and the way that Trump is going, this road he's going down, that it's going the opposite way. So that it's the coalition. When you say MAGA, I call it a coalition, and the coalition is falling apart. I could see a lot of them supporting the Democrats. I couldn't, because I'm not I don't believe in socialism. I believe in liberty, and socialism is the opposite of that. So I'm smart enough not to do that. But I could see a lot of people holding their nose, and if they put somebody who says the right things, which at this point it seems right things means anti-Zionism, anti-Israel, people will swing over.
The world and attack our forces and no longer use their IEDs or roadside bombs, as they are sometimes called, to so gravely wound and kill thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans. And we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. It's a very simple message. They will never have a nuclear weapon. This regime will soon learn that no one should challenge the strength and might of the United States Armed Forces. I built and rebuilt our military in my first administration, and there is no military on earth even close to its power, strength, or sophistication.
Catherine Austin Fitz, I was watching her podcast yesterday, and she said, like, anybody who claims to be the prime reserve currency has to be able to secure the waterways, the sea routes. If you can't do that, then you're not a prime reserve currency. And she said the U.S. has for the last decade spent between $500 billion and $1 trillion on the military, and they've just shown that they can't do what is necessary to secure the sea routes. So this is really a big blow for the military. Freedom Conversation podcast. Social credit is better than any government, as I'm beginning to realize. I think you're referring to the social credit system that was uh, experimented with in Alberta. I forget the gentleman's name. Or do you mean like the Chinese social credit system? Let me know.
My administration has taken every possible step to minimize the risk to U.S. personnel in the region. Even so, and I do not make this statement lightly, the Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission. We pray for every service member as they selflessly risk their lives to ensure that Americans and our children will never be threatened by a nuclear-armed Iran. We ask God to protect all of our heroes in harm's way, and we trust that, with his help, the men and women of the armed forces will prevail. We have the greatest in the world, and they will prevail. To the members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the armed forces, and all of the police, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or in the alternative, face certain death. So, lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death. Finally, to the great proud people of Iran.
They did this in the last war too. If you remember, they started sending text messages to Iranian officials saying, like, we know where you are, we know where your family is, like, surrender or we'll kill them. It's a level of savagery that the ordinary people, that they're not accustomed to. Maybe this was something that was done during World War II when you had total war, but it's hard to stomach, and he's kind of threatened them again. It's different when you have an elected official doing it, and he's doing it at the start of the war. But given that the war hasn't gone well, like every single time Trump engages in these tactics, and he's done a lot of them, twice he's already attacked in the middle of negotiations, it erodes America's credibility and America's ability to claim that they are the good guys. David says he's talking about digital government, technocracy may be a good thing. I mean, I see where you're coming from. I can't. I'm just losing my mind with all the regulations. So, like, I'm trying to send some money to my father, and I've had to write 3 separate letters to the bank justifying why I'm sending the money. Technocracy just takes it to the next level, and people are just going to start committing mass suicide or closing down their small businesses. Only if it was completely transparent. They then will never allow that. I think you're talking about the technocracy. Yeah, I'll let you two discuss that in the comments.
I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do.
They tried pushing that narrative. We're here. We're not here to take it over like Iraq. We will give it back to the people. It's yours to take. Again, if it had worked, if the regime had collapsed in the first day, it would have gone really well, and that narrative would have worked. But it didn't, and now it's becoming a problem. I couldn't tell if you're being serious, but either way, yeah. I mean, some people support it, I guess.
To do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond. America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass. May God bless the brave men and women of America's armed forces.
All right. This was interesting. So this is a statement from Carney. The Canadian government is closely following the Iran-related hostilities throughout the Middle East and urges all Canadians in Iran to shelter in place. Canada's position remains clear. The Islamic Republic of Iran is the principal source of instability and terror throughout the Middle East. It's almost like they got a memo from the White House, like, this will be your position in Canada or else. And then a few days later, when the war went badly, he came out and he reversed his position. He said, we took this position in error. So it's interesting how people, they have allegiance to the U.S. when the U.S. is strong, but not otherwise. I love this. So this one, Mike Benz here, he says that I guess he's pulled his support for Trump, but at the time he goes, I didn't watch this debate because the end of the First Amendment and the breaking of 250 years of peace and not doing political prosecutions of your opponent means this election to me is not up for debate. Trump 2024. And then Harry says, like, this, you dumbass. Like, did I stutter, bitch? Nah, I really like Benz. Mike Benz came out and this was on February 28th. I guess it would be the night of. This is 2:11 a.m. Pacific time. Is anyone else following this? We just set off World War III at 2 a.m. on a Friday night. Massive U.S.-Israel strikes all over Iran, killing thousands. Counter strikes hitting a whole range of Gulf allies, Kuwait, Qatar, and possibly Saudi. The world is going to wake up to 6 years of news in one news feed. I mean, we haven't seen World War III yet, but this is a massive realignment. And I think Mike, he kind of called it correctly. There's some people who called it the wrong way. So we're going to get to more recent ones. So I'm going to go a little bit faster. Secretary Hegseth announced the Department of War's cutting ties with woke leftist Ivy League universities. This is what Trump should be focusing on, domestic policy that his base voted for, not Iran. Nobody cares about Iran. Billboard Chris, to the great proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Well, I mean, this is just Trump's, he's taking Trump's words. Yeah, I mean, I can Billboard Chris this is going to be a disaster for him because he's a pretty strong Zionist and people are moving against Zionism. Now, I'm going to get to it. I think the whole thing is fake, but people are probably going to start attacking Billboard Chris. He's got thick skin. I'm not saying he's going to cave. This guy, whose name is just incomprehensible. Iran just fired missiles at 5 countries simultaneously. Here's what actually happened to each of them. Bahrain confirmed hit. And he's just going through all of the... this was a play-by-play of what happened. Breaking, the U.S. and Israel blown up the office of the Supreme Leader of Iran. Here's one. Tulsi Gabbard in January of 2020. January of 2020, no war with Iran. That did not age well. Randy Hillier, once again, while negotiations are underway, he's a strong anti-Zionist. In return, he's got a good point though. Like, you can't launch in the middle of negotiations. Here's another great one from Hegseth. Scouting America has agreed to enact policies based on sex, not gender identity. Again, this is what they should have been focusing on. Abu Dhabi struck by missiles. Liz Churchill, the trans ideology was cited in the Epstein file. Trans ideology is a psychological operation meant to demoralize and destabilize the nuclear family. I was talking to a libertarian, and he said that you had the great financial crash, and the left and the right, they put their differences aside. They came together, and they recognized that the enemy is the banking cartel. It's these people that are siphoning our wealth. The Occupy Wall Street movement and the Tea Party movement, they kind of started working together, and then miraculously, a few years later, you start seeing the promotion of all this trans ideology, and it started dividing the movement. Okay, fast forward to 2020, we had COVID that united the movement, and then you saw this Israel Palestine thing, and I saw it in real time, breaking that movement up. Come to 2024, I think it was, or 2023, the last couple of years of the Biden administration. Mel K, she made a prediction. She goes, the trans thing is on its way out, and you're going to stop hearing about transgenderism, and the next thing that they're going to push is racial division. She said that's why they're bringing so many different people into the U.S. illegally to push that, and they've done it in Canada too, but they've done it legally. Okay, what do we see? Mel K's prediction came true, because today, if you look on social media, everything is about race. Wiretap Media, I love Jason. He's a great guy. He's focused on Calistanis, mowing down Canadians in their 16-wheeler because they don't know how to drive in the snow. If you look at who's that idiot, Rachel Gilmore, she's hyper focused on white supremacy. If you look at all the other posts, you have these Iranians attacking the Palestinian pro-monarchy Iranians attacking the Palestinians. You had the guy, the mullah cleric, whatever, he came in. Everybody's about ready to lynch him. You have this, all of a sudden, all of this talk about anti-Semitism. I think this is the new transgender debate. Victim of President Trump is fully exonerated. Some of these things get through. John Levine, it's crazy how Iran can just slaughter 50,000 of their own people and progressives don't care at all. Yeah, the narrative originally was that, but now nobody cares anymore because the war's gone on for very long. Shannon, I'm still, his words they haven't aged horribly, but settle down. This isn't World War III. Iran will be defeated within a matter of days. Well, that didn't happen, but he's right about this so far. Russia is not coming to their aid, nor is China. They have their own problems. I don't think this, I called it. I did a live stream. I said, I don't believe his words are going to age well. They haven't blown up in his face completely, but Russia and China are definitely helping Iran. Like, China released a whole bunch of satellite images, just public domain, showing where the US troops were. Last time, remember, using both Russian and Chinese technology, they shut down the Starlink system. There's a lot of airplanes coming into Iran. They might not be sending boots on the ground. They haven't yet committed the way America committed with Ukraine. But I wouldn't say this has aged particularly well. God damn you, bookmark. Why do you keep doing this? Where was I? What the hell? What the hell? Why do you keep... God damn it, Musk. Like, how hard is it to program a freaking website? It happened again. All right, we'll go from the top. Fuck, man. Why does life always have to throw me curveballs? Billboard Chris has jumped into this. I'm a little shocked. I don't know if that's sarcasm, but yeah, he's a really aggressive guy. I try to stay away from him. Like, even online, he made an argument supporting him and he attacked me. I was like, geez. Charles Manson had a little bit to say on the subject of race wars. Yeah. So this is a pro-Jewish organization. This is what's happened in Canada in the last few days. It's like they're trying to incite a race war. We have a big problem with our Canadian Security Intelligence Services, CSIS, and our Jewish community. Since October 7th, CSIS Canada has posted about Islamophobia 12 separate times on X. They've posted about anti-Semitism 0 times on X. Just to be clear, those numbers should both be 0. They should be talking about, I don't know, Christian phobia. Like, they should be focusing on the burning of the Christian churches. They should be focusing on Canadian culture, not this made up. This is like two losers in middle school complaining about how the teacher is, being showing favoritism to the other one, and he was like, "No, the teacher likes you, and you're a suck up." That's what this feels like two losers arguing about who's the bigger victim. CSIS Canada not once mentioned extremism without ever referring to Islamic extremism, mentioned terrorism without ever referring to Islamic terrorism. This, to me, is the Jewish lobby trying to influence our our affairs and influence eventually censorship laws when they have no business doing this. If you want to turn your country of Israel into a police state or more of a police state, go home and do it. I don't support. I don't support Islam. I don't support Judaism. I just support the Canadian way of life, which is based on. I mean, they say it's Judeo-Christian. I don't mind that, but don't this whole concept of Islamophobia or anti-Semitism. It's just exhausting. Look at it, like they're just going over through these numbers, and then you get some pro-Muslim community that's going to come out and do the same thing for Islam. Well, actually, hate crimes against Islam is higher. They got a whole bunch of pictures. If X wasn't broken, we would have gone down this in order. Let's see what Megan Kelly has to say.
Like, suddenly I'm an anti-Semite. Like, no one can name anything anti-Semitic I've said. I attributed us getting into this war to people like Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, Miriam Adelson, who definitely paid Trump hundreds of millions of dollars. And this is her number one thing. But it's also, I reported this to you last weekend, my old pal Mark Thiessen of Fox News, and General Jack Keane of Fox News, and Lindsey Graham. I think all three of those are not Jewish people, pushed hard for us to get into this war. Been very critical of Lindsey Graham, who's frothing at the mouth for more death. But Mark and General Keane, I respect and like them both. I disagree with them and they disagree with me, but that's fine. We can still have disagreements without demonizing the other.
JP and I, we've been talking about this concept of what is Israel. We don't look at it as a nation. It's like a forward military operating base for the, whatever you want to call it, the Western Empire, the dollar empire. And Mossad is it's just an intelligence branch of CIA, MI6, and both of them are more off, like off grid, off the books, unauditable, unaccountable, so they can do more things with them. And that military and intelligence base, it helps them keep Asia under control and under the thumb of the West. When the people are starting to criticize Israel, or criticize Zionism, they're criticizing what I mentioned. That's why I don't support what's going on over there. But I don't really have faith in people anymore. So when I see all of these Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, like overnight, everyone all of a sudden turned on Israel, I'm wondering, my spidey senses go off. I'm like, wait a minute, are we actually going to start seeing some justice and some progress, or are they planning on rebranding Israel somewhere else? Like, we're going to see a new Israel form, because every time we think we're making progress, we get screwed over. I have PTSD now every time I scroll down since this website's broken. Gary, I've come to the conclusion that these constant glitches are not glitches at all. Yeah, it's probably CSIS spying on me. Derek, it doesn't help that they're offering Canadian citizenship to IRGC leaders as refugees. Not going to end well. Only leads to eventual government intervention. I have a different view on that. I don't think. I mean, I don't understand how anybody in IRGC could possibly get citizenship here, since we've just labeled them a terrorist organization. If that's possible, then I mean, I don't understand. Why is it that if I talk on my phone while driving, I get berated by the police officer and I get a ticket and I almost go to jail, but these IRGC guys can just fly under the radar? Are you telling me that the government can't figure this out? But I suspect that guy that came in wasn't even IRGC. He was a Muslim, Shia Muslim cleric, and people are going nuts, partly because there's so many liberal Iranians here now. If I was that guy, I would not want to be here today. Team integration. Wish I could stay. I'll be back to watch later. Yeah, no worries, bro. Johnny, JT, Johnny Tight Lips. Israel seems to be a globalist construct. Yeah, but I just mentioned earlier, a couple minutes ago, that to me it's just it's a tool of the Western Empire, and it's a really good one. Kind of like the Bank for International Settlements. It's unauditable, and they can use it for their own purposes. Sure, there's some people living there, and sure, some of those people are Jewish, and maybe they love their homeland, and all of that good stuff. But that's not what we're targeting. That's not what we're attacking. And they're putting those two together. So when you say, when you criticize the military or the intelligence operations out of Israel, They use what they're doing is they're hiding amongst the civilian populations. They want collateral damage so that when they do something illegal and you call those Zionists out, they immediately switch to being Jewish. Like, oh, you're attacking Jews. And it's worked really well for a while, and it seems like it's fallen apart. But again, I don't believe anything anymore. So I don't know if it's actually falling apart or they're just, those Zionists are like, all right, we use the good Jewish people for long enough. It's not working anymore. Let's go find another group. Like, I don't know what the next group is going to be. Yeah, I think you're talking about the censorship with the anti-Semitism versus Islamophobia and all that. It's just, and Anglo-Canadian, he told me about this during the election. He said, you need to come out and criticize CJPAC, Canadian Jewish Political Action Committee or whatever it is. And I told him, like, I agree with you, but in this political climate, it was just impossible in 2024. There's just too many Christian Zionists, especially in the PPC. And politics is downstream from culture. So unfortunately, I couldn't talk about it at all. Don't forget who we had as a guest of honor in the House of Commons. Yeah, that Nazi. Hunkel? Here's Wiretap Media. I like Jason, and I mentioned this. Explosive Barbara Perry peddles junk science, blaming the surge in hate crimes on white supremacy via flimsy correlations while ignoring the real culprit. Imported geopolitical tensions flooding in through unchecked immigration, according to StatsCan.
Now, you both were listening to that report from Eric from our investigative unit. I'm just so curious as to what you were thinking when you were listening to that. Barbara, maybe I'll start with you.
So just to be clear, these three people, they're not like me. They're not like anyone in the audience. These are your urban elite liberals, even if they're not elites. They're urban liberals. Their view is that you have to be cushy and nice, and you don't talk about anything that be construed as being mean. Every time I see the CBC logo, that's how I feel. If you look at the Heritage Committee testimony that Travis guy gave, same thing. Like, he's using the language of the left, diversity, harassment. They use a whole bunch of equality, things like that. Like they're victim to the narrative that they're peddling. So you'll never get an objective news story from anyone in the CBC, even though I am somewhat criticizing Wiretap Media. Let's continue.
Sure. Well, I think it's part of a broader trend. We're at the same time that we're seeing an increase in extremist activity, we're also seeing.
There we go. Extremist activity. They're never the extremists. It's always someone else.
Seeing a sort of is it the lower end of the continuum, an increase in hate crime and
hate crime like this. She's trying to tiptoe around the word hate speech.
Hateful speech.
Okay, maybe not tiptoeing.
As well. So this is all of a piece, I think, motivated by a whole raft of factors that I'm sure we'll unpack momentarily. But I think it's important to note that it's, this is not operating, these groups are not operating in a vacuum, but are part of a broader ecosystem of hate and hostility and conspiracy theories as well.
That was word salad right there. But she basically said, like, it's everything on that other side is perfectly organized. Nothing to see here. Anti-hate doesn't exist. It hasn't ruined the lives of people. The tribunals haven't ruined the lives of people. We don't have two people that are currently either in jail in Canada or awaiting trial for Holocaust denial. This woman is utterly clueless of what it means to pursue like common law, the concept of castle doctrine, God's law. She probably grew up. I shouldn't be so mean to her, but these types of people, like, they grow up in the urban centers and they're dependent on government. Now, on to Wiretap Media. While ignoring the real culprit, imported geopolitical tensions flooding in through unchecked immigration, according to StatsCan. So StatsCan didn't say that's the real culprit. They're saying that there's a lot of unchecked immigration. Now, I think it's a complicated issue. I don't think it's just immigration. I think it's the fact that everyone is poor. When you have relative poverty, you're going to see an increase in crime. I think it's the perception that our institutions are themselves breaking the law. So when you see government breaking the law, you're kind of like, at some point, you're like, well, why should I not break the law? This is ridiculous. They're breaking the law all over the place. And then government tells me, like, I have to get a license for my dog. I'm not gonna get a license. Go screw yourself. I have to get a permit to cut a tree down. It's on my property. I can't have a fire pit. Screw you. I'm gonna make my own little fire pit in my backyard. So I think it's a complicated thing where I will support wiretap media. Unfortunately, in this climate, it's necessary to remove the stigma when it comes to talking about mass immigration. That's where I support things like wiretap media and the Dominion Society. People have been shamed in Canada so that they can't talk about this stuff. They've been told if you talk about anything related to immigration policy, you're racist, you're white supremacist, which is what the purpose of this woman here is. The Buck You Will seems to have pulled his support for Pierre Poilievre. He's been doing this for a while. You'll never have my vote again. You've had too many chances, progressive, conservative, or Zionist. This Zionist, this would be like if you'd used this a week ago, you would have been considered a vile racist, anti-Semite. Now it's just mainstream.
So as you can imagine, it's a pretty big honor for a simple goy from the prairies to stand before you today.
Man, this guy is just, he's a train wreck. So X-caved and kicked tracked CIJA. I guess you're tracking the Jewish lobby, Israeli lobby, sorry, in investments in Canada. Who do you think went whining to the powers that be? Here's their website with incredible resources to root out these Zionist foreign agents who deprive Canadians of their charter rights and freedoms. I've seen a lot of these accounts popping up in the last few weeks. Some of them are supporting the PPC, and Max has also made the jump from being quiet about it and neutral to criticizing the Israeli influence. And I don't know, man, it just doesn't seem organic to me. I don't support it. I don't support Israel, but I follow this stuff 24/7. I wonder how much of this is funded by people that fund Tucker Carlson. And I honestly wonder how much of this stuff is funded by, and now I'm being theorizing, but funded by Israel itself. They're like, why don't we fund these things and make them sound anti-Semitic, and then we can go out there and Netanyahu can say, this is the woke Reich, which is what he called it, the woke Reich. I'm like, man, you are so old. It's like a creepy old guy at a dinner party. But I digress. I think that might also be part of this. Dalia Kurtz is an Israeli shill, parroting their special interests here in Canada. See some of her documented ties here. I don't know who this Dalia guy or Dalia girl is. The day after terror march in the streets of Canada. There's a whole bunch of these accounts. Like they must be taking money from somewhere. And if Bibi is listening, I'm willing to shill for Israel if you give me enough money. And by enough, I mean like even $1,000 a month, bro. I got utility payments to make. I'll switch over to being a simple goy. Larry Maher is an Israeli shill. Here's some of the documented ties. He's just going around calling everybody an Israeli shill. I don't know. That doesn't add to your credibility. Ryan Garrettson. When the federal government keeps appointing the worst people to advisory positions, it's pretty obvious that they aren't looking to better the nation. And they reward the worst of the worst. This is Bernie Farber of the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, January 2022. He is filled with unbelievable hatred and spewed horrible lies about the convoy. Yes, I'm going to go in and play the video. This is reality. It's not going away. Complaining about it won't make it go away either. I'm partnering up with a couple of people, and we're coming up with some ideas on how to fight back. We need to get people mobilized off of social media in the real world, having these conversations. And the only way that we can actually push back against these, hate mongers is through objective, reasonable, as much as I hate to say it, centrist debates. And it doesn't have to be a formal debate. It could just be, asking a question for a few seconds and listening to other people, respecting them and listening to their opinions. But this guy, his purpose, the reason they picked this guy, they put him in front and he says, white people bad, white supremacy, extremism, anti-Semitism, or Islamophobia. And everyone, myself included, but everyone in the audience gets angry and we overreact. I'm going to play this and then I'll go to the audience questions.
I'll reach out to Bernie Farber. He is the chair of the Canadian Anti-Hate Network in Canada. Bernie, thank you for joining us today.
3 minutes.
Thank you, Michael.
Listen, I want to begin with your thoughts. As someone who grew up in Ottawa, as someone whose father was a Holocaust survivor, when you hear about swastikas being painted onto Parliament Hill, being used to deface property around the nation's capital, what goes through your mind?
Why would you start with that question? I mean, surely this guy knows that the boomer generation is dying off. They're the only ones that watch this with his CBC. I can't believe that. If I was this guy, I would have depression. I'd be like, no one's watching my show. Why am I still doing this?
Well, it's absolutely frightening. I think you have to remember that it's not just me, but there are many of my friends and family and others in the Jewish community and in the community of color and other minority groups, but specifically those groups that have been targeted by
division. I think they got as much traction as they could with the trans agenda, and now they're moving to the racial division. And you know, you got to give credit where credit is due. They did a great job. They imported all of these diverse people. They put them in different ghettos, and now we have a balkanized nation. It's a tinderbox, and it's a powder keg that's about to blow.
By Nazis and neo-Nazis in this country. You see swastikas and Confederate flags, but specifically swastika flags on Parliament Hill, walking down residential streets, as the councillor just noted. I mean, it does fill you with apprehension. It fills you with fear. It fills you with concern. And as a child of Holocaust survivor, I understand it, but I actually think most Canadians get this. And it's not just a few malcontents or a couple flags. This so-called convoy actually seeded the ground, in my opinion, for the worst display of Nazi and racist propaganda that I have ever seen in this country. And I've been to lots of protests and many more such as these, going back to the late 1960s to this very day. And honestly,
I did a podcast with Nico Lagan yesterday or the day before, and I told him, I said, I don't support any of these people, the Iranians that are supporting the war and protesting in Iran. I don't support any of these pro-Palestinian protests. I don't support any of these Israeli protests. The only protest I supported was the Freedom Convoy, because it was a truly Canadian grassroots protest. And you know it was grassroots, and you know it was impactful because the government freaked out. If it was a nothing burger, they wouldn't have freaked out. They wouldn't have called martial law. They saw the people had organized, and they saw that the people wanted their country back, and they had to crush that movement. This guy is just a continuation of that. He's just a loser, nobody. I mean, you can hate him all you want. If he doesn't do his job of inciting the public and dividing the public, they'll find some other bald-headed NDP union boss, and they'll put that person in, or maybe someone with a septum ring.
I have never, ever seen anything like this.
You say seat of the ground, but as I said to Councillor McKenney, there are people who support this protest because it began as a demonstration against cross-border vaccine mandates, and now have people joining because they are not extremists, but they don't want the government to dictate what they should or should not do. What do you say to those people who don't see themselves as doing any kind of harm, but who have stepped?
Oh, wow. That's a very nice way to make it sound like it's objective. Yeah, it was clearly a racist protest, and some good people got sucked into it, like Peyman Askari and his audience. Maybe they were, well-intentioned, and they just got sucked into this neo-Nazi movement.
Forward to show their support.
I think that they have to understand that they are marching in the shoes of neo-Nazis. They are giving support and succor to racists and bigots and bullies. I understand that people can have different views on health concerns and on vaccinations.
You don't understand shit, man. You would have been happy to stand by him. Every single person that didn't take the vaccine would have gotten thrown in jail or in internment camp. He would have been absolutely okay with that.
Don't agree with them, not at all. But they have the democratic right to come and do that. Unfortunately, the extremists have either taken over the agenda or actually helped develop the agenda. We don't really know yet, but we do know what we've seen with our own eyes. And we do know that we've seen a statue of Terry Fox basically defaced. We've seen people urinate.
This thing again, it's a lawyer's tactic. Like when you're losing an argument, you change the debate. So now people, they get tricked into talking about how, well, no, they didn't deface the statue. They put a Canada flag on it. And then you got to talk about this other guy who put like a toilet paper on it. They TP'd the flag. Why don't you talk about that? And no one's talking about the main issue. This guy's role here is to divide the country.
On the war memorial, I mean, the list goes on and on. What have they accomplished? They've accomplished nothing more than angering Canadians, the vast majority of whom are supportive of national vaccine mandates. And so, yes, let them come and protest the actual health issues, but they have to understand that by doing so, they have actually walked in the shoes of bullies, racists, bigots, and Nazis.
Expect nothing less from the CBC. Let's see what we got in the comments. Derek Sittler. These people are just useful idiots that manufacture slop in a vacuum to be used as propaganda to further their narrative. Yeah. And it gets people angry, and angry people do stupid things. And then around and round we go. Prairie. Yep. Weak, spineless, Pierre Poilievre, all theater. Billboard Chris put out a really good post, and I can't remember what exactly it was in I think it was the floor crossing. That woman crossed the floor. He said the Liberals will get a majority government. If they want, they can call an election and they'll win, because the Conservative Party has just put out a completely uninspiring message, a narrative, rather than actually talking about the main issues facing the country. And he said that there's going to be a leadership review after that, and they'll remove Pierre Poilievre, and then they'll have a debate to decide whether they want an actual conservative leader or if they want to continue going down this path of progressivism. And he said they will continue going down that path of progressivism, and this country will be governed by Mark Carney or some other liberal MP for the next PM for the next 10 years. I thought that was accurate. And the Conservative Party has no one to blame but themselves, because the only use for the Conservative Party is lock down the right. So if anybody comes up and they want to move the country in a more conservative direction, in a more populist direction, in a more libertarian direction, they have to attack that person, attack that movement. Don't split the vote. We don't need a purity test. And what happens is that person just goes in the non-voter category. So the Conservative Party is just shrinking its voter base until it becomes completely irrelevant. I don't know what happens then. Tim, been calling out the Israeli influence in Canada for at least one solid year. I've seen it as well. I'd say I'd started being vocal in the last 6 months. I'm not necessarily vocal, but I see it. They're chipping away at the freedom of speech. But how do you? This is not a subject that's easy to broach. If you notice, Max just came out in the last few days opposing Israel. The Israeli lobby is so powerful in Canada. And here's another thing, and I actually brought this up in a debate when somebody asked, will you call it a genocide? This was in the last election. I can't remember if I said yes or if I said, I disagree with what they're doing. But I pointed out, I'm like, there's so many Christian Zionists in Canada. As a politician, it's political suicide to come out and criticize Israel. That's another thing that people always say, oh, politicians are weak, they're spineless. Well, politics is downstream from culture. Don't call the politicians weak or spineless unless you're willing to go out there door knocking, door to door, and calling out every single Christian Zionist. We have to change the culture first. Tim's links don't work. It's on my profile. Come on, guys. Derek, guys like Bernie Farber would never subject themselves to the humiliation of public debate. Maybe not. But it's also possible to win debates just by attacking your opponent. If you don't believe me, look at David Suzuki. He's got a debate he did in the 80s or 90s with this guy. He just kept calling him a racist and a white supremacist. And you have a whole bunch of students in the audience and they cheer him on. Debates they're interesting that way. It's not about who's right, who's wrong, who's knowledgeable. It's a skill. This guy's dangerous. Yeah, that guy's a loser. This guy is Canada's George Soros. I'd say George Soros is much more dangerous. This guy's just a raging lunatic. Ashkenaz. Great. He's going to get me assassinated. Tim, I'm sick of talking about it. Have a good day. Tim, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a gentleman by the name of Doug Force. I found out he recently passed away. He's the original guy who made the documentary The Myth is Canada. And not the recent one, Canada, the Myth, or The Myth of Canada. And I had him on, and I asked him, I'm like, is there anything that you're not willing to talk about? He's like, no, my life is an open book. I'll talk about anything. And he goes, except for the Ashkenazi Jews, because I don't want to die. Those are literally his words. And now he's dead. May he rest in peace. This effer would want to march you to the train. Yeah, exactly what I meant. These are the people. They don't like it when you call them Nazis, but I'm sorry, but you're just standing by as people kill them. People are dying. Self-governed. Hello, buddy. The CPC is over and will follow the exact path of the UK Conservatives. Restore Britain has suppressed the UK Conservative membership. Right, but what party is going to step up? I don't see the PPC really making any moves. I hope I'm wrong. And even if they do, the attacks from the Conservative Party are vicious. They are absolutely vicious. If you don't believe me, go back to the last election. This concept of PPC bros, and the Conservative Party came out and labeled anybody that's trying to support the PPC as PPC bros, and the podcasters co-opted this. They started saying, "Oh, these PPC bros, they're all bad." And I went to the party, the People's Party, and I told them, I'm like, if you want to counter this, we have to put out a positive message. The reason that these guys are being labeled as PPC bros is because we're not putting out a unified message. So the base has to do that, and you don't want to do that. The base is just not equipped to do that, and the party didn't listen to me. I also went to the party and I said we need an emerging strategies department, emerging threat department. So every time they attack Max for having a home in Florida, or for whatever reason, what was the other one? They tried to call the party of Jew hatred. It didn't really stick when they realized there's so many Christian Zionists in the PPC. But I said you need to get ahead of that, and you need to come up with a strategy and a message, and you got to disseminate that to all the candidates and repeat that in unison. And the party said, no, we don't believe in a whip. I'm like, this isn't a whip. This is about messaging, not about governing. But they didn't, and the party got decimated. Derek Sittler. It doesn't help when your official opposition leader is the country's leading panderer. Yeah. Were there any Zionists involved in the 1BC implosion? Yeah. I think you're talking about Wyatt Claypool. I don't know. From afar, it seemed like that Offman guy was more of a younger nationalist. So the nationalists are a little bit more critical of Israel. Whereas Dallas Brody, she's a little bit inexperienced, and she listened to Wyatt Claypool. Claypool probably came to her and said, "This guy's an anti-Semite," and she believed it, and she fell for it, and she let the party get sacrificed. Yeah, self-governed degrees. Yes, I remember well. Restore Britain is a new party. Reform and UK cons are attacking now and losing. The PPC never surpassed the CPC membership. Have these guys? Oh, okay. Restore Britain has surpassed the UK Conservative membership. I didn't know that. No, it's good for them. I don't know. Again, I don't know what's going to happen with the PPC. All right, let's keep going until Elon Musk destroys this page again. K tag set. The grift goes on. False flags are big business. Ontario handed 20 million in Ottawa, another 10 million for extra security. No video, no witnesses, no arrests. Meanwhile, over 30 churches burned to the ground, 10 Muslims murdered, nothing. But sure, weak response. So I guess somebody said that there was an attack on a synagogue, and they said there was a weak response. Look, I get it. If you support an organization or a people and they get attacked, you're like a union. You gotta demand as much as you can get, and it's necessary for people to be able to attack one another. All I'm saying is this seems manufactured. Remember, we went over one post earlier. This one, where was it? This one right here from Tafsik, that's saying there's too much anti-Semitism. And then you got this one that's essentially saying there's too much Zionism or Israeli influence. And like, who's K Tagseth? Joined 2009, 2,000 followers, 204,000 posts. It seems legit. But it just, I don't know. I don't trust any of this. Grift goes on. Grift goes on. Tell me about it, bro. All right, let's try refreshing the page maybe. If this doesn't work, I'm going to have to start removing bookmarks. Okay, Brett Weinstein. On June 18th, I had a text exchange with Charlie Kirk. He said he was spending 2 full days at the White House trying to persuade President Trump not to initiate a war with Iran. Robert Barnes has said the same thing. Given that Charlie was close with the president, that he represented a large constituency essential to Trump, and given that many proponents of the war with Iran saw a U.S. attack as urgently necessary to the survival of Israel, it is reasonable to wonder if his refusal to back down from a steadfast position somehow resulted in his murder. This is something I'm actually starting to consider. Like he attacked he went to the universities and he was reaching out to the students, which is the woke factories they pump out these woke idiots out of, and that posed a threat. But he was also starting to change his opinion on Israel, and that's when you really start to scare the Zionists, and the neocons are like the 5-star generals of the Zionist movement. So maybe that could be why they got rid of him. But or maybe they thought we have to get rid of somebody to try to spark unrest, and this is the number one guy that would do that. A good investigation could have settled the matter. What we got only increases the reason for concern. I don't understand why the Trump administration is so opaque. It's causing problems. Asking this question may be unforgivable, but it is in no way unreasonable. Charlie was in strong opposition to keep us from doing what we have done now. And the timing of his death removed him from the equation and likely changed the course of history, as Charlie himself worried it might. Yeah. It's more people coming out and calling out Zionism. This whole Israel thing, again, Israel is not, when I said it's an unauditable offshore institution, I see it as you got the billionaires. They're almost laundering their money through the Israeli lobby. They can't come out and say it's a neocon lobby. They can't come out and say it's a destroy the world but remain the hegemon lobby. I think Israel just gives a good, front face to it. Let's start getting rid of some of these. Here's the one where Max turned on the Israeli lobby. Are they putting Canada first or Israel first? This was a couple of days ago, March 14th, 3 days ago. I saw this. I'm like, holy crap. Because Max, I know people like to attack him, but he puts a lot of thought into his posts. And when he does a good post, they are spot on. And this is like a declaration that the PPC is moving away from its steadfast support of Israel. I never really got the sense from him that he was like an evangelical or a hardcore Christian, but that a lot of his base were Christian Zionists, and you could see it at events that you went to. But I think somebody told him, you got to do the calculus. These Christian Zionists, they're aging, the boomers are dying off, you got to go after the youth. We saw what happened with 1BC. Dallas Brody made a mistake firing Hoffman. You can capitalize on this. So I guess he's going to align more with the nationalist movement, and it'll be interesting to see how he irons it out with Daniel Tyree of the Dominion Society. He'll probably need his support as well. That'd be an awkward call to have. We saw this. We got this. I got to start removing these bookmarks. I guess more than 4 bookmarks, and X can't handle it. We went through this. We went through that. Had to suffer through that. Get rid of that. We all need to think hard about whether the people we are listening to on podcasts deserve our time and energy. The right has a podcast problem. I really don't want to read this live, but yeah, it's being pulled in every direction. I've heard people saying they don't trust Tucker either. We went through that. I'm going to leave this bookmarked. I want to continue monitoring this, see if it's aged well. I think, is that it? That stutter. God damn it, man. Musk, you got to fix this X thing. Yeah, I think that's it. We'll go through my feed because my entire feed is basically race baiting. Let's go through the questions. I'm out. Peyman. Cheers. Take care, Derek. Johnny Tightlips. Are you to Erica France's CIA Mossad yet? No, I haven't gotten there yet. Let's go to the home. I'm under For You. Toronto police officers came to this woman's house to speak to her about a post she made online about her Prime Minister Mark Carney. They let her know the next time she would be charged and taken to jail. Meanwhile, people in Toronto are urinating on public transit or in corners by storefronts, not to mention the violence. Let's see what she said.
Here to say that I feel like, well, here you have it, guys. The police in Toronto are already going door to door, talking to people about what they say online. I just am here to say that I feel like, there's a lot more things that these police officers could be focusing their time and energy, keeping the streets safe for our children. But, I guess that's not their priority, right? I guess that's not the priority.
Allegations that you've made some online posts to the Prime Minister of Canada. Do you have anything to say about that?
Can you be more specific? What post? What I specifically said? Do you have a screenshot?
Yeah, you specifically said, and you made it online.
Because he's a Zionist scumbag, and he's not my prime minister. So,
okay.
But really, you're going to come to my door, and you're worried that I'm going to do something? Do I seriously look like a threat to you?
So that's why we came to talk, right? So those threats are made.
You know what? You guys should be busy taking care of actual real crime than standing here harassing me over fucking shit I say online.
I understand. But
okay, don't be wasting tax dollars doing this bullshit.
Nicole, if such behavior continues, If there is,
What are you going to do? Put me in
No,
jail
so
because
let me
I don't
finish.
like our prime minister?
No, but if you made some threats that are concerning,
What kind of threats did I make? You still haven't shown me what I
you're
said.
talking over me, man. I'm trying to explain to you what the
Show
threats
me
are.
what I said.
So if those threats are continued,
Show me what I said.
right, you could be arrested and charged. Just want to let you know.
Communist Canada.
understand?
How do you like working for that? Are you proud of yourself? Do you go back home and look at your family in the mirror and say, this is what you do for a living? You harass people for what they say online because I don't like our stupid prime minister?
Communism. Here we come.
I saw that video pop up in my feed, but I hadn't actually watched it until now. This is just it's crazy, and it's funny how it's about Zionism too. That it's a word that nobody used a couple of months ago, even weeks ago. This has been happening for a while now. I mean, you have Barry Neufeld with the tribunal, you have Amy Hamm with the tribunal, and you have Kathy Drake with civil court, and they're all being sued for criticizing the trans agenda. And then on the other side, you have two gentlemen. One got charged this year, one got charged last year for Holocaust denial. So that's from the Israeli side. In 2022, they amended the concept of hate speech to include Holocaust denial, and they did it through a budget bill, which should be treason. Like, you can't fucking put this shit through a goddamn budget bill, but they did it. So you have the anti-Semitism argument, you have the trans argument, and I'm almost 100% certain there's got to be some Islamophobia ones as well, where people got charged or hit. The only one that comes to mind right now is McLean's, and that was in 2007 or something, where the Islamic Council, the Canadian Islamic Council or something, they tried to sue McLean's in the tribunal courts to go after him in two different jurisdictions, federally and in Ontario, and it backfired on them badly. And then from then to now, I think they started refining their tactics. People like Bernie Farber are going to 100% come after people posting literally anything that they subjectively feel is hate. He is the founder of the Zionist Canadian Anti-Hate Network, which in and of itself is a literal hate network. Yeah, but I mean, sure, maybe he assumes a Zionist position, but then you get another jackass in there who assumes a pro-Muslim position. And then you get another dipshit that assumes a trans position. And then you get another like realpolitik scumbag like Mark Carney in there who has no position. There's, he's like, well, today's Monday, I think we'll go Zionism. Tuesday we'll go Islamophobia, and Wednesday we'll wrap it up with transgenderism, transphobia. It's the entire institution is crumbling, and it's because our common law system is failing. Like, we have so many tribunals, we have so many regulations. The amount of taxes that we pay, people, they have this impression that the government takes their money and burns it, or the government takes their money and spends it back on them, but then takes a cut, in like administrative fees or whatever. It's just a wasteful way. It's better to keep. No, the government takes your money and it uses that money to enslave you. So if you open up a department for, I don't know, wildlife, and you label rattlesnakes as endangered, and you pass a law that says you're not allowed to kill a rattlesnake on your property, which is a law in BC, by the way. We have rattlesnakes up north. Eventually, they're going to recognize that law is unenforceable and people are going around killing rattlesnakes. So you get more money from you, and they're going to invest it in some way in monitoring and making sure and prosecuting people that do that. And why do I say that? I'm pretty sure this is in Canada too. In the US, they have something called the open fields doctrine. You have private property rights on your home, but not in your field. So if you live on an acreage, they can come onto your acreage. They don't need a warrant. It's these little things that change over time, and we're seeing the end result of it now. JT, setting up the perpetual surveillance state, aka Big Brother Winston. Yeah, it's frustrating, man. I should start wrapping this up. I gotta. Wiretap Media. Israel wants to limit Canadian freedoms to tackle anti-Semitism. How about you stop blowing up the Middle East and sending us your effing problems? Israel seeking significant change in how Canada tackles anti-Semitism. Yeah. I agree with all of this sentiment. I don't understand how Canadians are finally waking up just in the last few days. It seems strange to me, almost manufactured. Here's one, Joe Kent. After much reflection, I have decided to resign from my position as director of the National Counterterrorism Center effective today. I cannot, in good conscience, support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this. Again, how is it that people are finally waking up? Have we actually crossed the point where people, they won't take this level of corruption anymore? Or is this guy working for the Democrats and they're just trying to tarnish Trump's image? There are many false claims in this letter, but let me address one specifically, that Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. This is the same false claim that the Democrats and some of the liberal media have been repeating over and over. I don't know, man. It's you can say whatever you want, Caroline, but this is a bad image, bad look for the Trump administration. JCCF. Ottawa has reappointed woke agitator Bernie Farber. This guy looks like a lunatic, too. I mean, first of all, he looks sickly. Whose organization denounces as far right anyone who disagrees with them. Yeah. Well, they have the levers of power, and they're using them. Wiretap Media. The mastermind behind Canada's pseudo-far-right extremism narrative, Barbara Perry, was laughed at out of an Alberta courtroom after being exposed for unethical and shady research practices. Yeah, she doesn't look very credible. PPC, let's see what kind of crap post they put out today. 300,000 in loans were wired overseas. Leave Canada. Debt gone. Banks eat the loss. Canadians pay. Yet Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney both insist we need more mass immigration. Why are they importing problems? It's just so poorly worded, and no one's going to read this. Come up with better posts, something with an easy picture or a video. More than 700 Iranian agents in Canada pose national security threat, MP warns. Maybe not. Catherine Russell-Fitz made another good argument. She goes like, it's ludicrous to believe in a world where everything is tracked, the government monitors everything, and you're telling me that Iranians came into the country, they're operating without the government knowing anything about where they are. They have money, they're spending money, they're making money. It just seems unrealistic. And I have that same view towards drugs. Like I'm sure the government can listen. I have two phones here. They can listen to what I'm saying. I'm streaming this online. Anywhere I go with my phone, they know exactly through the GPS. They know through my car where I'm going. You're telling me you can't shut down the cartels overnight if you wanted to? Israel, the greatest danger to freedom of expression in the world, is demanding that Canadians' freedom of speech be limited. Yeah, Israel is part of the problem, but it's not just them. It's the Muslims as well. It's the trans community. It's always going to be somebody until we can come up with a positive image for where we want the country to go. What does privacy mean to us? What does property rights mean? Why do property rights matter more than privacy rights? Until we can answer those, we'll just be chasing our tail with this. What is Mark Nixon saying? This is Doctor in Canada. People doing MAID are actually very privileged, white, and well off. Yeah, I remember this. They're doing this intentionally to piss people off. These are people who live in urban centers. My Lord, man. Why'd you have to cut your hair like that? All right. Let me just go to the comments and then we can end it. Oh, where'd all these comments come from? Stephen Cooper. Well, the Liberals and NDP are run by the WEF globalists. They don't care about Canadian law or rights. They only care about power and money. Do the right thing and vote for Pierre. I mean, you can vote for Pierre. It's not going to change anything. I think the country's got bigger problems than that, and it has to be solved culturally. But this lesser of two evils is not going to fix the problem. Not at all. And I go back to what Billboard Chris said. The Conservative Party, by not putting out a good, strong message based on the facts on the ground, what's happening to the country culturally, means that they're going to lose, and they got no one to blame but themselves. Ferrari, and reading that last comment, have a great day, Peyman. Colt Deck. Property rights, title in BC have had an impact on the boomer. I know, funny to watch. I wasn't even talking about that, but yeah, you're right. The land transfer. I'm surprised. This could be a tactic where they're just like, why don't we give heart attacks to a lot of these boomers so they die early, so that we don't have to pay for their health care, and maybe we can steal their land after that happens. I still don't understand why they give Vancouver away. I was talking about property rights in general. I was under. I went back and I looked at common law, British common law, going back hundreds of years, and you never had private property. If it was an open field, even if it was fenced off, the law enforcement could walk through it, and if they found something illegal, they could charge you for it. I was under the impression that if you owned land in America anyway, nobody was allowed on your property. But I'm in Florida right now. The game warden can come on the property anytime. If it's gated, they can smash the gate. If I'm doing something illegal, like shooting a deer without permission, it's not deer season, I can get arrested, even though it's on my private property. So I asked ChatGPT about this. I think 1776, they understood that you needed to have stronger property rights. They understood that all the other rights were based on property rights. But we've eroded that concept, and now it's about privacy rights, not property rights. But I digress. I golfed in Cache Creek many moons ago. They had signs that said, "Do not try and retrieve balls, rattlesnakes. Scam maybe, but I wasn't willing to check it over used balls." Yeah, they do have rattlesnakes. And they're illegal to kill, which is, I don't know who thought that was a good idea. Now, you break MAGA by obviously pushing US into a war. Then they mock you for being against it. That will bring up the Zionist comments. You break MAGA by obviously pushing it into a war, pushing US into a war. Then they mock you for being against the war. That will bring up the Zionist comments. I don't understand. What are you saying? That, like, who? I don't follow, man. Clarify. Prairie. JCCF in court today for the ban on walking in the woods. Really? I mean, I doubt they're going to win. If they do win, or maybe the government will revoke the law and they'll call it moot. Judge will, do some sort of mental gymnastics to say, well, technically, yes, the government broke the law, but, reasons. You're not going to see a premier going to jail. Remanded, thanks for reposting this. All right, guys, I'm gonna end the stream. I have to go back and deal with my bank and my accountant and my lawyer. May God have mercy on my soul. Tonight, PST, we're going live at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Me and JP, we're going to be talking about this whole Zionism thing in more detail. Take care.